years ago, I got a GPS for my car. On a trip together, my friend Becky and I named the GPS Carol. This detail is very important to the story. Later that summer, Bill and I drove to Oklahoma City for my nephew's wedding. After the party, I entered the hotel address into Carol. I settled Bill in the back seat. He had celebrated with quite a bit of wine. And my mother in the front with me. There was a lot of construction in downtown Oklahoma City, and I thought I might need some sober assistance. I followed Carol's directions and soon found myself on an entrance ramp to the highway with my progress blocked by a huge concrete barrier. Someone had moved the earlier wood barrier that was at the start of the ramp. Don't know if it was a joke or what. So as I backed the car down that long curving entrance ramp, I muttered, "Damn it, Carol." Bill leaned forward from the back and commented, "Well, it's not Carol's fault." And it wasn't Carol's fault. A road, a path that was usually a fine one, was blocked that day. We needed an alternative route, and luckily, there was one. It's good to have alternatives. Now, if you, unlike me, immediately placed your sticker on the pathway to peace you most identify with, well, I applaud you too. Because it's good to know yourself deeply, to be keenly aware of your strengths, of those attributes or paths that you most readily embrace. In considering pathways to peace, we should also consider just what our destination is. Am I looking for inner peace or peace in the world? The pathway I take to one might be different than the road to the other. Eventually, I began to organize my thoughts into two questions. Where do I find peace? And how do I make peace? So, question number one, where do I find peace? Many good friends engage in mindfulness meditation and find it to be a valuable pathway to inner peace. Others use gratitude as a spiritual practice, one that makes them more contented and peaceful. Lucky to live in a rural area, I often turn to nature when I need to find peace. Even as I dealt with the anxiety of not having this reflection completed, I paused frequently to gaze away from the computer, out the window. I saw the intense green beyond, the birds flitting by. I heard their calls to one another. I breathed in the damp, cool breeze. When I feel disheartened, beat down, nature waits to embrace me, to hold and to heal me. I resonate with the words of Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water. I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Some of you know that this past winter I went through a really difficult, miserable time. Faced with some significant stressors at work, I was in tears nearly every morning. I felt anxious, fearful, depressed, devalued. During that time, I woke one morning to find a deep, heavy snow had fallen. Gosh darn, couldn't go to work. I called in, and that day Bill and I took a snowshoe hike into our woods. The smaller trees were bent low, heavy with snow. I felt that deep snow like an embrace. Our dog, Jake Blues, had to leap like a gazelle to hike with us, and we laughed at him. It had been a long time since I had laughed. I found peace in wild things, in nature. Also during that time, I found strength and peace in music. There was a song by my friend Olenka that I used almost as a mantra. I clung to it. I sang it in the shower, I hummed it at work, I blasted it from my car speakers on the way to and from work, often in tears. Community also brought me peace. Friends who listened, friends who distracted me, friends who bought me a beer, friends who voiced righteous indignation over some of what I was going through, friends who celebrated with me when I finally moved beyond that dark place. I find peace in nature, in music, in community. Where do you find peace? And then question number 2, how do I make peace? For many years I worked as a nurse on an inpatient psychiatric unit. At times I was faced with potentially violent patients. And while that may seem daunting, most often a violent confrontation could be avoided with just a small act, by listening, by a little kindness. I used to say that many a code green, which is the term for a psychiatric emergency, many a code green was avoided with a cup of coffee and a peanut butter sandwich. And in 3 weeks, Connie Ganazzi and her brother John DeTay will speak about this everyday type of peacemaking. But then there are bigger issues, more global peace and justice issues that can't be solved with just a cup of coffee. How do we address those issues and make peace on a global scale? Again, I turn to music. The folk singer Pete Seeger said, "I always believed that the right song at the right moment could change history." He believed in the fierce power of song. In fact, he had the following words inscribed on his banjo: "This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender." Just like my GPS-assisted journey through Oklahoma City, there are so many roads, so many paths to peace. So come back. Join the religious services team and their friends this summer as we explore many of those roads. Feel reinvigorated in the paths you gravitate towards. Feel challenged as you explore alternative roads that you haven't considered before. Show up. And remember, if you get stuck, it's not Carol's fault.